Brought to you from Melbourne, Australia, this is the Badminton Podcast, a community for badminton players by badminton players, where we talk badminton, celebrate local heroes, interview players from all walks of life, and push you to grow as a player and a person. Introducing your hosts, Jeff and Henry.
To everyone out there in our badminton community, welcome to another episode of the Badminton Podcast, which is a Volant initiative. We're the co-hosts of the podcast, Henry and Jeff. Our mission is to simplify the badminton journey so that we can show the world how incredible our sport is. Check out our badminton basics at volantwear.com, VOLANTWEAR. We're excited to be here and on our way to releasing 100 episodes to all of you. But before we get started, we just wanted to thank you, listeners, for making this podcast possible. Without you, there wouldn't be a badminton podcast, so thank you for continuing to listen and support us. So if you do enjoy the episodes we release, it would mean a great deal to us if you support us at patreon.com/thebadmintonpodcast. We'll leave the link in the description below. And now to my co-host, Jeff.
Thanks, Henry. So today on the podcast, we have a veteran guest who's been on a couple other episodes. So episode number 12 and number 33. And she's also been the co-host on several other episodes while we've been overseas competing. I think it was at the Malaysia Masters and the Indonesia Masters in 2020. Her name is Gronya Somerville, and for all those out there in the badminton community, I'm sure you're very familiar with her name and her as a person. Just a quick recap, her highest world ranking in women's doubles is number 18, and some of the major titles that she's won with her partner Setiana Mapasa are the 2016 Dutch Open and Canadian Open, and then again in 2019, they won the Canadian Open. So Gronya, just a quick introduction there, just because you've been on the podcast so many times, but thanks for being on another episode.
Thanks for having me. It's good to chat with you guys again.
So Gronya, this is going to be a pretty informal one, and it's just a bit of an update from your side, because I'm sure there are lots of listeners who are interested in what all the players are doing, including yourself. So here in Australia, we've been locked down for, I think it was over 200 days, in Melbourne anyway. It was more than half a year. I saw an Instagram post, and it was crazy how long we've actually been locked down. And it was a 2-week lockdown, and now it's turned into I can't remember how many weeks, like 30 weeks or something ridiculous like that. So how's your experience been throughout this COVID lockdown?
Yeah, it's definitely been an adjustment process. The first initial lockdown, I think all countries are kind of going into it at a similar time. So we knew everybody was kind of in a similar place. And I guess the first one was the hardest because, I was all prepared to go to these European tournaments for the rest of the Olympic qualification period. And then out of nowhere, we had to cancel all our travel. And then we were not even able to train, not go to gyms, so that kind of thing. So immediately when that happened, I actually straight away enrolled in a uni subject. So I got one of my hardest uni subjects that I'd been putting off for a long time out of the way, which was really good. But yeah, that first one was a bit up and down, like mentally with my motivation, with kind of finding a training routine. I left my own device a little bit in trying to make up different training routines, how I wanted to structure my week. So yeah, it was a bit challenging. But in Melbourne, we had initial lockdown, and then we kind of got reduced back towards normal. And then we went into a second lockdown. So when the second lockdown came around, I think I was a lot more prepared and had a better idea of the things that would kind of help me stay motivated and make me happy and keep me engaged. So yeah, I think I did a lot better the second time.
Yeah, and now Gronya, 200 days, as Jeff said, more than 200 days into COVID. What are some of the things that you've been doing outside of badminton as well? And we know that your focus is obviously badminton, but we've heard that you've definitely done some other things beyond that, including doing your uni course. But yeah, would you be able to share with the audience what else you've been up to in this time?
Yeah, so as well as doing my uni and keeping up my Chinese lessons, during the first lockdown, I started running some online workouts for my old high school's badminton team, Melbourne College, and I really enjoyed that. So I was kind of taking them through a strength workout and then some racket skills and some footwork stuff. And so as the year kind of progressed, I was just kind of thinking, I quite enjoy this and I'm doing an exercise science degree. Why don't I try and release this to the public and see if people are interested? And try and kind of interact with people from all over the world who love badminton, who might also be in a lockdown situation or not have access to courts, that kind of thing. So I got a website made and I created kind of a schedule and stuff. So that's up on my website, www.gronyasomerville.com, if anybody wants to check that out and book in a class with me. And then I also recently just added a 30-minute technical kind of session where you can send in a video of yourself playing and then I can analyze it and we can have a 30-minute session one-on-one via Zoom, just talking about the things that you can work on and kind of things that I see that you could improve and give you drills and the kind of stuff to improve it.
Yeah, sure. That's really cool. And with the interest that you got initially for this workout program, I understand that there was quite a lot of interest. You had lots of people to email. What have been the biggest challenges for you to service all the people who are interested in doing the workouts with you?
Yeah, so I've tried to learn a bit more about business during this year and kind of through lockdown, watching podcasts and listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, that kind of thing. So initially I just kind of used my Instagram, did some polls and got some emails. I got about 750 emails from people that seemed interested, and I sent out a survey to get some statistics about, where they're from, how many times they like to train, their level of badminton, their level of strength and conditioning experience. And then from there, I just kind of made the website and the program and released it. And it's been a bit interesting to see the target audience that I thought would be interested that's not really. So I don't know if it's kind of a money thing or like it's not a priority for them, or they actually just have badminton training, that kind of thing. So it's been a lot more Australian and European people interested as opposed to the kind of big Asian population who I thought would be more interested. So that's definitely a learning curve, and just trying to get more feedback from each class I run and ways to improve it. And I haven't done that much marketing or that kind of thing. So I'm trying to work on that a little bit more and have a little montage showing what the session is like, as opposed to people just reading about it or me just saying, come try it. Trying to learn all that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I guess for me, my thoughts would be that potentially in the Asian countries, maybe that kind of setting of learning things hasn't quite developed as much as it has in Western European countries. I think that in Australia and other Western countries, the online kind of learning and online workouts is something that has been around for quite a while, and we're kind of used to that. I'm not sure whether that's the same in Asia. Maybe they're just not used to doing that kind of thing. Maybe there's not enough space in backyards and things like that to do the workouts. So have you found any of the reasons why it hasn't been so popular in Asia?
No, I haven't. I haven't really asked people because I don't know them exactly. So some people have suggested kind of getting a test batch of, I don't know what it's called, people to test it from all around the world and get like feedback and that kind of thing. So maybe I should do that. But no, I'm not too sure.
It's such a complicated question to answer, and the different parts of Asia as well are going to have different factors. Like you have parts of Asia that are very accustomed to learning online and using online as a platform, and then you'll have some that aren't. And I think earlier you said pricing might be an issue as well, especially when you're comparing someone from a Western country, European country versus, say, for example, India, which I think that's something that we found when we were looking into producing our own sort of video analysis, is that certain countries, because of the price points that we set, we couldn't really get anyone to be just sort of confirm their interest. And when looking at, I guess you had about 700 people that showed interest. Of that 700, how many followed through with the actual training themselves or just joining some of your classes?
Like 10 to 20.
Yeah, definitely a good start. I mean, 10 to 20 is great. And just for the listeners at home hearing about the workout, both Jeff and I have actually tried the workout. So this is a non-solicited testimonial. So it's definitely very good badminton specific workout. And I can tell you that I was ridiculously tired for days after. So it's for someone who doesn't exercise all that often except for on the badminton court, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, Henry was dying. He was sending selfies of himself literally just on the floor just for the rest of the day. He just could not get up. While my feedback for the session was there was too much rest, Henry's was that he welcomed the rest very, very much.
Yeah. So that's something I kind of work on in each session, is having different alternatives to each exercise for different levels or different rest intervals so that it is applicable to all different levels within the same session. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just keeping in line with the online workouts, there was someone that at my gym who I knew that did it. Her name is Rachel, and she has a podcast and she does a lot of that stuff. And you managed to connect with her. Bit of a shout out to her as well, potentially on this podcast. But how has talking to people who are already doing it helped you in the way that you've been thinking?
So just in general this year, I've tried to reach out to a lot of kind of people that are in the fitness industry or business. I have a mentor through a program in Australia called Minerva Network that partners a female athlete up with a female business leader. And so that's been really good, just kind of talking to people, getting to know, more about the industry. And so, talking to Rachel is really good just to kind of understand finding the target audience and figuring out that there's like so many directions that I could go in with it. Like I could try and please everyone and have a really big schedule, or, I could even narrow down to junior athletes only, or try and target like schools specifically in Victoria. There's like a lot of different options, and just kind of trial and error as well. A lot of the time I was kind of like, I need to have this right so that when I do it, it's like people see it's good and they want to do it straight away. But with a lot of stuff, even my YouTube, like I put it off for so long just because I wanted to have it right, when it's just, I just need to start it and kind of just get the momentum and the consistency, and I'll just learn as I go, and it doesn't have to be perfect straight away, and it doesn't really matter if it is or not. Like people can catch on later, and all that kind of stuff.
Prolific beats perfect, hey?
Prolific. Okay, sure. I haven't heard that one.
Prolific beats perfect. Yeah. A very business kind of saying that it needs to be just 80% there. Speed of implementation is the key, not getting everything perfect, because by the time you think it's perfect, it's probably not going to be perfect by the time you get feedback anyway. So that's cool. Now, just recently, so time of recording here, it's going to be a few weeks delayed, but there are quite a few people on my Instagram popping up, and they are on their way to Denmark actually for the Denmark Open. One of them, Michelle Lee, who I follow closely, I'm good friends with. Have you heard much about what's going on over there, and how much do you wish that you were going over to compete in a tournament right now?
Yeah, I'm seeing all the Instagram posts and I'm pretty jealous.
And Kirsty Gilmore as well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing like the Canadians, Irish, all the Europeans, Americans. I mean, it'd be so awesome. It seems like such a weird thing to think about tournaments. Like it's been so long when it was such a big part of all of last year trying to qualify for the Olympics. I just love to be competing. I haven't even seen my doubles partner in pretty much this year as well, which is just unheard of for a doubles pair as well. So I'm pretty jealous, but it's just very hard that we're in Australia because it's hard to leave the country to travel, and then coming back is also, we have to do a 2-week quarantine at really high cost, and then we don't know when the next tournament will be, so it's hard to be based in Asia or stay in Europe, and there's just so much uncertainty in the world, and especially around travel. So it's just not feasible for us to do that right now, but I hope it runs really well, and I hope the more tournaments they run, the more the easier it gets to travel, as well as the players all over the world find confidence in that the tournaments can run safely and run really successfully, so that they'll have high levels of competitors and less people will be withdrawing. So I hope that, because that would be really good for badminton.
Definitely. It's really important to keep the sport going. And I know a lot of the Danish players have been really trying to push that we get back to the tournaments and get back to competing. But of course, the BWF does have a tricky situation on their hands to try to manage it. And the last thing they would want is a breakout at a major event there. So when you talk about having to stay home and you can't go for the tournaments, it'd be interesting to hear from you as to what you feel like you've been working on and improving in training, because we've been having a really big training block, and me being your coach at the current time, I know what I'm trying to achieve with your training and with the other players in the team. But what's your perspective on how the training's going, and what do you feel that you've really been able to work on during this lockdown period where there's been no tournaments?
Yeah, I think for most players, they've never had a training block this long without tournaments. So it's really a good opportunity to try a lot of different things and work on different things, and then progress that into another block of training. So for me, I think because we're only doing 4 sessions a week as well, we also have kind of 2 days rest between 2 of those sessions. So it's good that we can get really high intensity and really push ourselves in those sessions, because we have a lot of time to recover, which is something that we wouldn't usually have because we're usually in 6 days a week and just trying to catch our breath for the next session and just keep our legs going. So that's also been a bit of a change. I think it's definitely been a good opportunity to work on some of the building stuff, the foundation. So just work on like getting a strength, the power initially, and then we're going into more of like the consistent and trying to get into the match play stuff as we get closer to tournaments. But it's been good also to work on footwork movements and some of the nuances that you don't always have time for because they're not a huge priority. We're doing a lot of hand power stuff as well. I've even done a bit more single stuff than I normally would because usually you're just trying to, sharpen everything up for that doubles match that you're playing in a few weeks' time. So it's been good to kind of have this different training style, training with the singles boys a lot more. Yeah, all that kind of stuff, just exposing myself to different training styles and seeing what works and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's great. And if you were to consolidate these learnings into, say, your top 3 learnings during COVID that you might not have learned outside of it as far as your badminton training is concerned, what are your top 3 things that you've learned during this period?
I guess the main one would be that you can have like a really good training week in just 3 or 4 really good quality sessions. It doesn't have to be heaps of sessions. That's been a really big one. I guess the next one is like, because we've only been allowed to have a small number of players as well. And that's really meant that everyone has been in like really motivated and in a good headspace and supportive of each other. So sometimes when you have a lot of players, a few can kind of bring down the quality or the vibe at the session. So we've had like a really good, encouraging and hardworking atmosphere at training, which has been a really good thing for us during this period. And then the third one, I guess, would be, just like because we do have that small squad, we have more time to kind of work ourselves as opposed to feeding the others a lot more. So making sure we always have something to focus on and really like, even if we're doing kind of a more generic exercise, we're really focusing on the thing that we need to improve and trying to get the most out of each exercise.
Yep, that's good. And from my perspective, just for everyone out there, I'm not making Gronya start up singles. If you follow her on Instagram, you'll see that she's doing a lot more jump smashes and things like that. And that's just she's been doing it in matches actually, for everyone listening. It's just become a bit more natural to do a few jump smashes and jump drops here and there, which is pretty cool. Bit of variation there. But what you were talking about in terms of this, the more full court movements and like singles training was basically brings back a conversation that we had a few weeks ago with Rachel Honderick, which is the Canadian previously singles player and now doubles player that Gronya, you know well and have played on many occasions as well. And we're talking about how her and her partner, Kristen, they were both singles players. And whenever they were in trouble, they could just go into kind of like a half court single style and just play long rallies. And of course, that's what the Japanese can really do as well. So hopefully when you get back into tournaments, that increased movement on court will make you a lot more comfortable to play those long, drawn-out rallies that sometimes you do have to play, especially when you do play someone with really good defense or really good ability to get out of that fast and hard driving game that I'd say, Gronya, you prefer to play more over the really long rallies that are basically like half-court singles. Yeah.
For sure. And you've been testing us out on that one with 80-shot multi-shuttle.
Yeah. And how have this might sound a bit funny, but I know we've been doing it training, but can you tell us about what we've been doing between the sets of multi-shuttle and how that is interesting as well?
Yeah. So most of the time we've been doing kind of 3 sets of 10-minute workings of multi-shuttle. So we do different drills for a whole 10 minutes. And then in the break, aside from sometimes we would play a box match to kind of get that match focus going when we're under fatigue. An alternative one that I've had has been maths questions on a phone. So you have, I think, 30 seconds and you have to do as many maths questions as you can. It's just kind of really sharpening the focus. At the start, sometimes, or even towards the end as you get fatigued, you're like, don't even realize it's a minus before like you're doing addition and you're just like not taking it in, you're not paying attention, you're just trying to like get through and you're just reacting. So yeah, it's really the whole focus of both the things is working on the focus and the concentration and not kind of letting your mind just collapse because you're tired.
That's a very unique way of training your focus, guys. Is that something that Gronya, you or Jeff decided to initiate as part of the training?
Well, Jeff initially wrote all the programs.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of ways to challenge the mind while under fatigue.
Some other countries, so when I was in Malaysia, they did one where it wasn't multi-shuttle, but it was like a fitness circuit. And then in between, you'd have to cross out numbers in order. So it was like a scrambled numbers in box things, and you have to cross out like 1, 2, 3, and they're in different places. So that's kind of more a searching one. And then I think in Denmark, they do one where they watch a video and somebody goes up for a shot and it freezes, and then you have to guess where they're playing it or something like that. I'm not sure exactly, or like the choice you would make. So that's also a decision-making one as well.
Yep. And I remember we did one where it was just purely memory as well. I remember between multi-shuttle sets, I'd tell you my birthday and then my brother's birthday and then my sister's and then my mum's and my dad's. And then I'd ask you what the date of birth was for a certain person. And then most of the time you could remember them, which is pretty good.
That was fun. But sometimes like when I'm doing the multi-shuttle, I'm like thinking of the numbers. I'm like, don't forget this number.
Instead of focusing on the shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people are kind of maybe a bit negative, and there's a lot of negative vibes, especially on social media, about COVID and how, especially in Melbourne, how potentially we've got the worst lockdown situations in the world, etc. But what have you really grown to appreciate during COVID? Like if there was no COVID and life was just a rush and basically go like it normally is, and now with COVID that we're stuck at home a bit more, maybe there's a bit more time to think. Have you noticed anything about yourself or something that you really do appreciate despite everything that's happening around you?
I guess the main thing is that I'm just like grateful to have my family around me during this time, and like grateful for the time spent at home, because I was traveling so much last year. And I think for a lot of athletes that are traveling a lot, they miss out family experiences at home. And it does kind of come into your head where you're making this awesome experience on tour and traveling, and you only have 10 years or so of your athletic career to be at the top, and you kind of want to put everything into that. But then at the same time, you're also missing out on all these special moments and experiences at home with the people that you love. So it's always kind of an internal battle about exactly like where you want to spend this time and energy and those memories and kind of things. So it's been nice to be home, and like, because I live with my mom and my boyfriend and that kind of thing, just have more time with them. And then I guess I'm really, at the start, I wanted to actually move out of home because it was kind of doing my head in like being around my mum much, because she was a teacher. So she was home teaching from home, and our house is really messy, and I was like frustrated at all this stuff, and it was really getting to me. So I was actually looking for places to move out to. But then by the end, I'm like so grateful to have my mum around and spend time with her and help train her in the gym. And now that it was getting warmer, we have a pool and a spa, and like me and my sister are building a shed, and we were cleaning up the house. And I was kind of grateful for this amazing house that we do have, and my perspective changed in that regard. Melbourne has a really tough lockdown, but I feel like in every aspect of tough things, injury or family issues or work things, I always just try and remember that there's somebody out there that has something way worse. Like there's pretty much always somebody that has it worse off, and you just need to be grateful what you do have and like try and see the positives. That like I do have an awesome house. I live in a country where they are making an effort to keep the COVID cases down, all those kinds of things, as opposed to thinking, oh, I've been here so long, I haven't seen my friends in so long, like just trying to see the positives as much as you can.
And with those projects, I know that you've been doing lots of clean outs, but what else have you done? Have you got a veggie garden? You've been doing some painting. What are the home projects you've been able to do?
We did a lot. So yeah, the first lockdown we did a veggie garden, and I honestly didn't expect to be around for the harvest. I was like, tournaments will be up and running. I'll be traveling. Like my mum will have to harvest it all and everything. And so it's been really cool I planted this awesome purple cauliflower, and we roasted it the other day, and just like all this cool stuff like that. Yeah, my sister's building this whole working shed. I'm helping a little bit with on it. I transformed one of my gym rooms because I got a sponsor, Nirvana Tech, who gave me this really big, awesome gym rack that has like cables and bar and squat rack and all that kind of thing. So I cleaned out one of our junk rooms and painted it white to my mom's disapproval and stuff like that. Yeah.
What color are the walls of the house normally? I've been to your house for your 21st or something. They're usually like orange and purple and stuff, right?
The hallway is like yellow. So there's like a dark yellow trim, and then the walls themselves are like a light yellow. The room I painted had purple trim and green walls. And then upstairs, The bedrooms all have a different color. So my sister's bedroom was orange, my brother's was blue, mine was bright pink, and my mum's is green. And we have a purple bathroom. So every room is different. I just like neutrals and, bright. And she's like, that's so boring and all this stuff.
So were they originally painted by your mum in those colours, or was the house like those colours originally?
No, so we bought the house when I was 1 year old, and then in 2005 or 6, I'm going to say, she renovated it and put double story. And so at that time, during the renovation, she picked out all the different colours.
Yeah, okay. No wonder why she's so upset that you repainted her walls.
Yeah, but that room as well, it's like a double room with a folding door in between. So there's actually 2 with the same painting. So she actually still has another room that has the colour scheme that she did.
Right. I don't know if that's worse though. She'd be looking at both and be so disappointed that the other half is white instead of that colour.
Yeah, but after I make any changes, she's always like, oh, it actually looks good. At the start of lockdown, she didn't want a gym on the porch. She's like, oh, it's so cluttered. And now she's like, oh, I like having a gym on the porch. Every idea I have is brilliant.
Ends up being good.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Gronya, we're going to segue into basically the bit more of your personal life because, of course, COVID has given you the opportunity to really appreciate being around the people that you love, like your family. And there's someone else that's going to jump in on the podcast, and his name is, I'll let you introduce him actually. I'm not sure whether he's been able to speak much about both of you as a team, as a couple. So introducing Gronya's partner in crime, who may have not been on the podcast with her before. Gronya, can you introduce him to us?
Okay, so this is Micah Phillips, my boyfriend of, what is it now, 9.5 years nearly, I think. So
almost double digits.
Yeah. So we met when I was 16 and he was 18, and he's from Auckland, New Zealand. And so he played badminton for New Zealand, and we met kind of at junior tournaments. And then we talked online back in the day when all the junior kids from Australia and New Zealand used to be on MSN and
MSN Messenger.
Yes.
Good fun. Good fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then we were together long distance for 8 years. And then just last year in October, he moved over because he got a job at an engineering company in Melbourne. And then we went into lockdown in March. So we've been together since then.
How has the transition from long distance? No, but first of all, how hard was long distance for you? And did you both experience it differently? So was one okay with it more than another? I'm not going to say did one miss the other one more than the other person, but how did you cope with that? And what were the challenges for you individually to be away from each other for so long?
Let's start with the man himself.
Micah Phillips.
In the flesh.
I don't know. I just distinctively remember different transition points where at the start it was kind of like the other person almost wanted the other person to kind of go out and not spend too much time trying to talk, say on Skype or whatever. And then all of a sudden it would kind of flip and the other person would get a bit more clingy or something. You'd kind of go through different phases.
Do you switch roles from time to time as well? Is is one person more clingy than the other, and then suddenly that other person is?
You'd get to that thing where it's like, well, if you're expecting this of me, then I'd expect this of you. And then you're like, oh, no, now I'm becoming clingy. It was just a bit weird. And then kind of, how long would that have lasted?
And that was probably the first few years, 3 years maybe. At the start, we were just getting to know each other and we were like, go live your life, go have fun with your friends kind of thing. And then after a while, we were like, oh, you don't want to talk to me? You didn't reply to me. You didn't think of me as soon as you woke up kind of thing. And then I think we were just good at communicating. We used to do this thing where we'd be like, oh, what's bugging you about me? What kind of stuff am I doing that is annoying you? We'd talk about that and then we'd be like, okay, and actively try and work on it kind of thing. And then we just talk a lot. So a lot of nights we'd actually fall asleep on Skype, wake up on Skype. Before we had smartphones, we were buying a lot of credit for our phones to text each other, paying a lot that way. But once we got the internet and everything on our phones, that was pretty good. I think because we started long distance, it was easier than people that start together and then transition because they're used to having someone around all the time and doing all the activities together and that kind of thing. I think in terms of me personally, it was really good because I was traveling so much and I'm quite an independent person. I think I would have struggled a bit in my like developmental stages, having to do all the kind of social things and feel like I had to do it with my boyfriend as opposed to doing it myself or with my friends, or feeling restricted in some way. I know a lot of my friends from high school that had long-term relationships kind of throughout high school and into their early 20s have broken up because they didn't feel like they could do all these experiences by themselves, or they hadn't even had the experiences because not that they didn't want to, but it's just like you wouldn't do it if you were in a relationship kind of thing. You know, I still went clubbing and that kind of thing, but I never, I don't know.
You never what, Gronya?
Where are you going with that?
No, I mean, like, I've never had the desire to like go with other people. It's just like those experiences that you wouldn't do it as much if you had your partner with you kind of thing sometimes. Yeah.
So out of both of you, like on average, who's more clingy? We'll let both of you have an opinion. Who's more clingy out of both of you?
I'd say I'd probably be more clingy now. Yeah.
I definitely had my stages. I think you're probably a little bit more clingy now, whereas I'm pretty chill.
I think you reached the maximum clinginess though.
Yeah, I set the bar pretty high early on.
Okay. What do you mean by that? What examples do you have of that really high level clinginess?
That was when I was in high school, and I was like, if you're not replying to me and thinking, like, you're not replying to me means you don't love me kind of thing. So I was like, you didn't think of me as soon as you woke up. Do you still love me? Check your phone, like it says seen, but you didn't reply. You don't love me. Just everything. Like,
that seen function.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
I don't know, just that kind of stuff. Or like you talk to another girl. We had a stage where we like logged onto each other's Facebooks. That was bad. I know a lot of my Asian friends still do this, and I don't think it's a good thing, but we're at the stage where we're like, we don't care and we don't check, and we have like complete trust in everything. Like he can post.
I think that's a horrible thing. As in, like, to read through someone else's messages, if you have to do that, then there's already something a bit dodgy, like wrong happening. But that's just my opinion.
It started out innocently, though. It was like when you can't see people's profiles because you're not friends with them, you're just like, I don't know, if that kind of thing. But yeah, it gets to a bad point when you're like scrolling back 3 years and you're like, oh, you said like happy birthday to this girl.
Yeah. So when you used to ask yourself the question, okay, what's bugging you about me? Like, whose idea was that, and at what age were you doing that? Because I guess that's something that has probably really helped you guys to be together for almost 10 years, right? Because I think it's quite an uncomfortable topic to talk about. So was it uncomfortable to start with? And who came up with the idea that you should actually do that?
I feel like did you start it? Are you trying to, okay, he's trying to claim he started it.
Mike is like, yeah, I did that. That was me.
I think, yeah, like you say, how it's uncomfortable. I think I started it because I think I used to get, like, there were certain things that I was kind of like, oh, like when you do that, it kind of upsets me. And so I kind of try and talk about that. But I feel like when it's the other way around, I didn't like it either. So I think Gron kind of keeps like us accountable to doing that every now and then as well, though. Once kind of all the things that I thought that I didn't like kind of went away, I was kind of happy to not do it. But then Gron's kind of like, I think it's still worthwhile doing.
I would say we started doing it pretty early on, though.
Yeah.
I don't know, within a year or two or something, because I feel like issues wouldn't get resolved, or you just like overlook it and then it would just resurface if you hadn't addressed it. And ultimately we wanted to be with each other. So we wanted to work on it and do what we could so that we were happy and we didn't have any issues. So I think it was really important. I guess examples of it, I mean, when we were younger, it was maybe stuff about replying, that kind of thing. Or like if you go out clubbing, then try and message me every few hours and let me know you got home safe. Now maybe it's like, I think recently sometimes you would get home and I'd be taking a class or I'd be doing something and then you'd start like gaming or something, and so we might not talk for a while. So we kind of made sure that we had an hour or so together each night before we went to sleep. Things like that can just get overlooked really easily and get into a bad habit if you don't address it. And one of you can just be like silently resenting the fact, and we just make sure we bring it up so that we can talk about it, and the other one can be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize. Let's come to when you meet in the middle, what's that word?
Compromise.
Compromise, yeah. Let's come to a compromise.
Yeah, well, it certainly sounds like what you've been doing for the last 9 years has been very constructive, and I think that's a really important exercise for relationships. And I may not necessarily have such a formal way of doing it with my girlfriend, but we communicate in that sense. Like, what's bugging me about her and what's bugging her about me. But yeah, certainly in that sort of similar fashion, I think it is a healthy part of a relationship, or else you do unfortunately start resenting and holding stuff a lot deeper, and then that'll make things worse in the long term. And for most of your relationship, you've been long distance, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what has COVID brought to the relationship and the dynamic since you've had to move over to Australia?
I think it's just been nice because from October, we never spent more than 3 weeks or a month together. So just from that, it was nice to, have the everyday experiences, going out together on the weekends regularly, seeing friends, that kind of thing. But even actually when he moved over in October, I was still traveling a lot. So even within that, I'd be home for a week or two, and then I'd be traveling again, and he'd have to hang out with his friends or, talk to a lot of people online. Whereas then when COVID came around, we actually had every day together, and it was really nice to kind of have that consistency and like the closest we had ever been to kind of a normal relationship where people do live together and they see each other every single day. So yeah, it was really nice to have that time and get into a routine of something like if I wake up for early morning training at 5 a.m., I'd like prep some lunch for him and leave it out for him. And then we walk the dog after he gets home from work, and just the wholesome stuff.
The nice, wholesome, coupley stuff. But getting into the nitty gritty a bit, what have the things that, you don't have to be too serious about this, but what are the things that you've been bugging each other with? So things that potentially you didn't see being things that would annoy you. Like, does Micah leave his socks everywhere, or does Gronya leave stuff everywhere, or not wash the dishes? Or is there something are there certain little habits that you're like, oh, what about that?
Yeah. Well,
yeah. He's like, yeah, there is.
But with him, he'll get home from work, change his clothes, and he'll just leave them everywhere. And so I made a designated pile, and he can't even put it in the designated pile. He just leaves it everywhere. And because before when he lived at home, his mum would fold all his stuff and put it all nice and stuff. And I'm just just put it in the pile. But no.
It gets in the pile half the time.
Yeah, or he'll shoot for the washing bin and he'll just miss half the time. So it'll just be all thrown around the washing bin. So it won't even go in.
Better than 50%. I'd say 80% it goes in.
80%, okay. And Mike, I don't want to get you in trouble, but what does Gronya do that maybe you didn't think that she would do that maybe gets to your nerves a bit?
Grinds your gears.
I feel like the one that gets me is when she asks me to do things, but she'll walk in the hallway and then she'll look at me, and then I can see that there's something on her mind, and then she'll wait because I'm already in bed, and then she'll get into bed and she's like, oh, can you go turn the bathroom light off? I left it on. Things like that I'm like, okay.
Well, sometimes I'll phrase stuff and I'll be like, do you want to load the dishwasher? I'll say, do you want to? As opposed to can you please? And he'll be like, no, I don't want to. Just tell me to do it, or don't ask me if I want to. Or passive stuff you haven't loaded the dishwasher, or I don't know.
So just less direct forms of communication, yeah.
And now, Gronya, you've got, I think, almost 200,000 followers on Instagram and lots of admirers and fans out there all over the world. So, Micah, how do you deal with the attention and the love that the world shows Gronya on a day-to-day basis?
I don't know. It's a bit weird still. It was really weird at first when it came out of nowhere, because obviously at the start, she was just a regular, I guess. Yeah. And so at the start, it was a bit strange, but you kind of just get used to it. Typically don't really look at it too much. I don't get on social media that much. Sometimes it can get to me, and then sometimes I just kind of embrace it and troll around a little, but nothing too major.
Things that will annoy him more are if I post stuff in a certain way as opposed to what other people do or kind of say, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. It's more the way that I use it that might annoy him. But in that respect, he kind of doesn't like that I'm on social, because I see it more as kind of a business and building my brand and trying to get sponsors and that kind of thing. Whereas you see it more as a vanity, oh, I want to look good in this photo.
Look at me.
Yeah, he sees it more as that. So if I ever ask for a photo or 20, he gets really annoyed and is like, reluctant to help. So so that's something we've worked on. Like I don't ask him as much and I'll just get a tripod.
So Micah, is Gronya the one that keeps saying, no, take it from this angle, or no, that's not good, the light's not good? Or is she pretty easygoing once you've taken the photo or video?
Oh, I take like 20 and then she flicks through them. She's like, oh, can you take some more? I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, oh no, these don't look good. Take it from over there. And like, at that point, I'm kind of like, oh, okay. But,
I don't think I'm as bad as a lot of other girls.
Yeah. So.
And I read how you're feeling. Like if you're really pissed off, I'll just stop and just what I got.
And they just set the tripod up.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share with the badminton world about your relationship?
Other than it exists, just so everyone knows that there is a man in Gronya's life. Sorry to the fans out there.
There has been for 10 years, but you just don't see him commenting much on her posts.
And unlike live podcasts, it's not Jeff, just so everyone
Yeah, it's not me. Yeah, it's not me. Sorry, Mike, that wasn't intended at all. I dismissed that straight away. And yeah. So we're going to start wrapping up here. So it's been a bit more of a personal chat as to what you've been doing and, of course, your relationship, because I don't think you've spoken too much about it, have you?
No, not really.
No. And Micah, does it feel good to get yourself out there and say, hey, this is mine, stay away?
I have nobodies.
Not really. I feel like I'm just going to catch flack off it, but that's all right. They'll find something to tease me about.
You don't get all these death threats and hate mail and saying, I hate you, Micah Phillips.
I get random Facebook messages from, like how when you check your messages, there's like the hidden
requests.
Yeah. I see people make like, it's the same person making like multiple accounts to be like, leave Gronya Somerville.
Really?
And I'm like, well,
You never told me that.
Oh, it's a bit weird. I'm just kind of like, interesting.
Leave Gronya Somerville.
That's awful. Listen to that person if they're listening to this podcast. Shame on you. That's not a
Calm down. Yeah. They're a happy couple. I've known them for a long time. He treats her well. He's fine. He's all good. All right, cool. So we're going to wrap up here. So for everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. Do share it with all of your fans of Gronya Somerville and, of course, the badminton community as well. And hopefully everyone will start to get to know and like Micah Phillips because he's a cool guy. I know him. He's a very fast player on court. He can dive a lot. He can do lots of crazy parkour stuff like run up walls and do flips and all that kind of cool stuff. All the stuff that I can't do. So he's a cool guy. If you do want to follow him, you can. If you'd like to, I'm sure there's a way you can find him on Instagram. Do you want to plug your Instagram here?
I can't remember it.
I think it's just Micah Phillips.
But it's on Prime, so.
But Gronya would say no girls can follow him though. Okay, only guys.
So I'm not at that level of cleanness anymore.
Only guys.
And if anybody wants to join my workouts, then check out my website, www.gronyasomerville.com.
Yeah, definitely check it out, guys.
Yep, like we said before, we have done those ourselves and they are really good workouts. And I think she steals some of the exercises from my training programs as well. So I do highly support it.
So if you want to connect with us as well, you can connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, volantwear.com. Feel free to reach out to us, ask any questions, request any topics for any episode so that we can continue to show the world how incredible badminton is.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Micah and Gronya, for jumping on, and we'll see everyone on the next one.
No worries.
Hey, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
This podcast was brought to you by Volant Wear, the most versatile badminton apparel you'll ever own.